Preaching on it, yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to the one and only Rumboyz Fantasy Network. This is the Goal Line Goons, our Tuesday night waiver wire podcast. Taco has an ear infection in actually both ears. So I am doing tonight's show solo dolo. Okay. We are going to react to the NFL trade deadline. I don't want you guys to worry. Don't worry. NFL trade deadline reactions are definitely going to be happening tonight. I know that there's a lot of news. There's a lot of big trades. I am going to hold off on trade deadline for right now. And I do want to get into the injury report. I do want to get into the bye weeks, and I do want to get into the waiver wire because those things right now are absolutely of the utmost importance heading into week 10. The trade deadline is encompassing that, but we can get to that at the end of tonight's live stream. Okay? So let's just dive right in. Cheers to me. Cheers to you. All the rum boys and girls, what it do. Dilly dilly. Injuries after week 9. And let me tell you, boys, it is a lot. Tucker Kraft goes down with a knee injury. So we're losing one of easily the top premier tight ends in fantasy football. We'll be talking about, pivoting to Luke Musgrave and what that's going to look like and the availability and the ability to be able to grab him in your leagues. And pretty much what the strategy is going to look like behind approaching, replacing and pivoting from Tucker Kraft, who, has that knee injury. We wish him speedy recovery. We wish all these guys on the injury report speedy recovery. CJ Stroud, going to miss at least a week with the concussion. We'll see how that goes. Matthew Golden with a shoulder. Keyshawn Boutier. This one definitely pisses me off personally, just because I felt like we were getting into a ramp-up period to where it was like, okay, like it's going to be a Keyshawn thing, but don't worry, there's great patchwork available. I do think that Stephon Diggs is going to definitely be a recipient of some targets that Keyshawn, now that, with Keyshawn being out, it now makes Stephon just that more prevalent of a target in that offense. But I think that Pop Douglas is going to have something to say about that. We'll dive into Pop Douglas once we get into the waiver wire. Aaron Jones with a shoulder with a shoulder injury. Definitely monitored that one closely. That one we're hoping that he's going to be able to be back because it seemed like, that he was getting things moving, he was getting things clicking. Aaron Jones potentially to miss some time. I monitored this one close, but so far throughout the year with Aaron Jones, I'm kind of like, if this could be something extensive, I begin to worry. But hopefully it's not too crazy of an injury. He's coming off of a 15.8 fantasy point week. Of course, that is based off of, the scoring settings that we have set in the Colorado Springs Invitational. But hopefully, it's a sprained AC joint. But they're saying that it's not going to be serious. Maybe they just sit him out a game at the least. Puka Nacua, a chest injury. He was seen on the sideline with his helmet on. He did not go back into last week's competition, but that's because the Rams were starring in a fucking blowout. I think had that been a closer game, maybe they would have trotted him back out there. So there's that with Puka Nacua. Brian Thomas Jr., it's an ankle. It's an ankle, which means trade deadline. They got a piece, but Parker Washington is still there. We're going to talk about that situation in a few minutes. And then finally, Jaden Daniels, of course, with that gruesome arm injury. It's being reported to not be as serious. He could return. With things not looking too bright for Washington, there only being a 1% chance for that team to get into the playoffs, I don't think that they are going to possibly trot him back out there. But we'll see. They probably likely will just because the kid wants to, play. And then also, I mean, who doesn't want to go and get their game checks? Should I drop Bam Knight for Loveland or Musgrave or running back White, PPR? I have Pitts. Thanks. You have Pitts. It sounds like that you are in the market for at least a backup tight end. Loveland, who we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes, has actually been coming along. I'm seeing people kind of just going ahead and dropping Bam Knight. Bam Knight has been a week on, week off, add drop. This week I went ahead and I picked DeRicardo because I was like, you know what, like if that's going to happen again, then I'm going to, kind of roll with that. I would probably say yes on the dropping Bam Knight. As far as do I go Loveland or Musgrave, they are starting to get Loveland involved over the course of the last 2 weeks. We look at the last 3 weeks. He had 8.4 against New Orleans, 11.8 against Baltimore, and then 41.8 against Cincinnati. They are taking up the Giants, who have pretty much lost their mojo at this point. So I feel like I kind of lean a little bit Loveland. But also, I mean, Musgrave was brought in for a reason. We have seen Musgrave be able to be promising as a fantasy football tight end and be able to, go out there and produce for fantasy managers. You go back to, 2023, it was practically damn near, safe floor, double-digit weeks every single week. That's the type of production that we were getting out of Musgrave. Then, of course, once Kraft kind of came into the fold, Musgrave was an afterthought. If Jordan Love can get back on that same page with Musgrave, I absolutely love it. But I feel like I'm rolling with the hot hand, and the offense is trying to get things clicking and fight for a spot in that NFC North. I'm more so leaning towards Loveland. If you could get Rachaad White, like if you absolutely need a running back, like do you need a running back? I'm assuming that you do need a running back, Bob. Rachaad White should be the priority over all of those. Colson Loveland, if you cannot get Rachaad White, because I can guarantee that your league mates are going to go after Rachaad White. And then Musgrave at the very bottom. What's good, John, too? What is good? What is good, bro? Hey, pleasure doing business with you today in the league, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Let's get into the bye weeks for this week. You have a lot of pieces on bye. All right, I'm just gonna keep it real with you guys. It's not maybe as much as you would think. Well, that just scared the living fuck out of me. I am gonna keep that real. Was not expecting like my screen to just randomly go off. Your bye weeks, though, I do want to get into that. Flacco, no. Burrow, no. Chase, no. Higgins, no. Noah Fant. You're not starting Noah Fant, so it doesn't fucking matter. You're not going to have Dak. You're not going to have Javonte Williams. You're not going to have CeeDee Lamb. You're not going to have George Pickens. You're not going to have Jake Ferguson. It doesn't matter about the Tennessee Titans. You're not going to have any of them. You're not going to have Mahomes. You're not going to have Kareem Hunt. You're not going to have Rashee Rice. You're not going to have Xavier Worthy. You're not going to have Travis Kelce. Bengals, Cowboys, Titans, all on bye. Okay? So that is what you are dealing with for all the players that are all on bye week, all the teams They're all on bye week. Again, that is Bengals, Cowboys, Titans, Chiefs. Getting into waiver wire ads for this week and getting into waiver wire priority. I'm going to do these by position group, and I am going to do this by priority in what I would go out and get these quarterbacks. This is not based off of recency bias or hype. Okay? Hey, I appreciate the trade-off. I fucking need the trade-off. I need this beer right now. Priority of quarterbacks, high to low priority, in which I would go and get them. I want to start off with Sam Darnold. There is about a 48% shot that you might be able to go out and get him in your league. I don't understand why at least almost 50% of fantasy managers do not have Sam Darnold at least rostered as a backup. Or at least considering starting Sam Darnold. He's a top 12 quarterback. He is putting up elite level numbers in a different location with different weapons. It has that weapon as fucking wide receiver one, damn near, basically, is with JSN. The tight end is usable, and it is startable in fantasy. The running back situation is balanced. They just brought in Rashid Shaheed. Torrey Horton is a thing. Cooper Kupp is still there when he comes back off of injury. You need to go and get Sam Darnold. This team got better. This team is going to keep getting better. J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy did something to the Lions in Week 9 that I did not think was possible. Marching into their house, coming off of injury, not having many NFL starts, and going out there and playing with that dog in him. J.J. McCarthy, I don't know what we're going to get. I don't know if that is the J.J. that we are going to get week in, week out. It is definitely a waiver wire consideration if I know that I have my main quarterback having bye coming up. If, you've been dealing with injuries, maybe you're dealing with the Brock Purdy injury situation, so on and so forth. If you're in a situation, maybe you got Mahomes on bye and you're needing a filler. Maybe you're not able to get Darnold because you lost Jaden and Darnold's already gone and taken. I'm not minding J.J. McCarthy as the second option off the waiver wire. He's sitting somewhere around about 28% rostered, 26, 28. I don't mind McCarthy. The third quarterback and the final quarterback on the waiver wire before I get into running backs. This one is probably going to shock a lot of fucking people, and that is Bryce Young. Bryce Young is available in your league. Bryce Young is available in your league. About 14% rostered. What I like about Bryce Young is that we're starting to kind of get a little bit of what we saw from Bryce in 2024 towards the tail end of the season. And I said it kind of heading into this season, like I wanted to see if Carolina could kind of, take some of that momentum, and really build and expound on Bryce. Carolina after the bye last year, Bryce Young after the bye last year, after the Week 11 bye they had, it was pretty much 25 plus ish, 20. We'll call it 22 ish plus fantasy point outings per game. Okay, from Week 11 on. If we are a believer in, potentially, I mean, it's the NFL. History doesn't necessarily repeat itself per se, but if we are believing in trends, this is kind of around the time to where Bryce Young gets it going a little bit. And it seems like that this team does have something going. If you're needing a bye week flyer, they are playing New Orleans. I have a feeling that Carolina is moving with a lot of confidence. They have been playing with a lot of confidence ever since pretty much beating Dallas. I'm liking Bryce Young actually as a possible dart throw this week if I'm in a serious sticky situation, or if I just really have the kahunas, to be like, fuck it, let's fuck around and find out. Let's see what happens. If we're really trying to roll the dice, if I'm in a position where I'm like, things ain't going necessarily well right now, he didn't have a great outing against Green Bay. It wasn't great, but I mean, Green Bay also plays really, really decent defense. I'm not advocating for anyone to go and get Bryce Young. I'm more so, I guess, just advocating for Bryce Young, and Carolina kind of coming off of a win. I think that's more so just me basking in that glory, because that was honestly just incredible by them. But maybe if you're in a serious sticky situation, but Bryce Young, very bottom of the quarterback tier list for the waiver wire this week. The running backs. The running backs for this week are super interesting. It is looking like Monangai is going to be the lead back now. It's looking like Monangai has broken that kind of, getting into the green in terms of the snap share. Played 74% of the snaps. Played 74% of the snaps. Had 26 attempts, 176 yards. This is now his offense. This is Ben Johnson possibly getting ready to ship off DeAndre Swift at the end of the season should the Bears maybe not achieve, a run in the playoffs, or maybe not make the playoffs. So Monangai, I am at the point where I'm like, okay, now Monangai is probably in that situation of like, okay, he can start getting tossed to the flex and maybe working himself into my RB2 role. But Monangai with 28.8 last week against Cincinnati. I get that that's against Cincinnati. No, you're not going to be playing a defense like Cincinnati, week in, week out. But I'm warming up to this idea. What's good, Taco? I hope that you get better, man. Speedy recovery, all right? Speedy recovery. I'm holding it down. And also, I'll be able to get off a little decently early tonight, too. This next player that I'm going to talk about is just more so me looping back to last week's episode and then coupling it in with the cautionary tale of look at what has happened this year and look at how barren the waiver wire is here as we get into week 10, okay? And we start approaching trade deadline where, you're not really going to be able to make too many trades here in the fantasy football landscape. You need to be having here your handcuffs, okay? So I am going to throw out Tank Bigsby, especially if you are the Saquon Barkley manager. He's only 26% rostered. You can afford to trim some fat off your bench as you get ready for the playoffs and stash your handcuff heading into the season, heading into the playoffs. I have a roster where Am I ever going to start Blake Corum? Fuck no. Do I know that I don't want Corum to be on the waiver wire when I get to the playoffs, and I'd rather just have him on my team if something happens to Kyron? You're damn right. So this is the time where you kind of actually want to start being more prepared, and it's less about ad drop, and more about, okay, how is the roster going to start looking as we get into the playoffs? Yo, we definitely miss Taco. We definitely miss Taco. I'm on meds and sleep, taking it slow. Much love and support, bro. Hey, much love, bro. Hey, I know that you're. I'll message you. I'll message you, but I know that even though you're sick, I know that you're also happy as well. Tajay Spears, as we get into the third back off of the running back waiver wire side of things, Tajay Spears, this is a bye week stash. It's still this 50-50 timeshare. I'm still beating the drum of you don't want anything to do with Tennessee. I'm liking this as a trade deadline throw-in piece. You know, to be honest, let's say you're above 500. It's looking like, playoffs are, kind of going to be a thing for you. Nobody really has that confidence in the landscape right now, but I mean, let's say like right about now, you're like, I need to utilize something to just kind of strengthen up my bench. I would be utilizing Tajay Spears to maybe bring back, like, hey, I'll give you Tajay Spears, and maybe we can see if I can bring back, some of the pieces that I may need to really just shore up the roster, and then shore up the depth. You're not wanting a Titan anyways, and you're likely not going to be inserting Tajay Spears into your starting lineups. There's a chance that you might be able to get him. It's all going to be dependent on your league. All right. He's at about 59% roster. Dylan Sampson at 15%. It's really going to be dependent on Judkins, right? Judkins still expected to miss some time, which means that it automatically becomes a timeshare. This is just how fucking predictable the Browns are. You know that it's going to become a timeshare between Sampson and Ford. And if you had to pick one of the lesser of the two evils, if you're out missing Judkins and you just need a quick fill-in, you just have to make that lateral move pivot, then that's where I would go Sampson, just because he's the more explosive back over Ford. There's the more boom opportunity, and it just does seem like that the Browns are in this phase of we need to go towards our young guns. Isaiah Davis, I was ready, so ready with the NFL trade deadline to head into tonight's show and be like, I told you guys to go and get Isaiah Davis. I told you guys to go and stash Isaiah Davis, to the point that before the Jets had even made any moves, I had went and I saw Isaiah Davis still on the waiver wire. All right, I'm just going to prepare for him for Brees to get traded, and I'm going to stash Isaiah Davis. I ended up fucking going back and dropping Isaiah Davis right after the trade deadline closed, just because, and I picked up Amari Ricardo, just because I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this with the New York Jets. We've been hearing rumors and murmurs for last 2 years, last year and a half. They're going to trade Brees Hall. Brees Hall's out there. Brees Hall wants out. Brees Hall even emitted emotions about wanting out. It seemed like that they started trying to lean a little bit on Isaiah Davis to see what that could maybe matriculate and be a little bit, prior to the bye last week. And it was defensive pieces that all got moved. No one on the offense. I'll react to the trade deadline in a hot minute, but my gosh! So if you want to play the Isaiah Davis experiment, I have no problems. Go for it. Blake Corum, I am going to keep throwing out Blake Corum just because he is 9% roster, which means that, in my opinion, Kyron Williams managers aren't doing their due diligence to be prepared should something happen, should something come up with Kyron, especially given Kyron's style of play and the way that McVay has that very smash mouth, style of play of football. So I'm wanting more people that are, especially if you have Kyron, I'm wanting you to go and get Corum. I'm wanting Saquon managers to go and trim some fat off the bench, drop the piece that you're not going to be utilizing, and I want you to go basically, I want Kyron Williams managers to go and get Blake Corum. All right, for when you guys get in the playoffs, you're already going to be ready. Save yourselves. And then there's Terrell Jennings. I mean, I just feel like I don't know what I feel like in regards to whatever the fuck is happening in New England. To be honest, this was supposed to be Travion Henderson's week, and we weren't even supposed to be talking about any other back in this backfield like whatsoever. But Jennings had a decent outing. He popped out and showed. He got a TD. He had 15.4 fantasy points. What do you want me to say? Am I not supposed to shout the guy out? I want to have faith in Travion Henderson. I want to feel like that this is going to be a thing, and that this is going to materialize itself, and we'll be able to rejoice and say, you know what, we were right. Now, don't get me wrong, the touchdown by Jennings does not necessarily put him worlds above Travion Henderson from a fantasy football standpoint. We're talking about 1.5, 1.3 to 1.5 points apart from each other. One just had a touchdown. So I don't know what to make of that situation. I do want to get into the wide receivers. Okay. So heading into this, I had this whole thing prepared about Parker Washington. He's now going to be the one in Duval. Everyone gear up and go get him. And then Duval, after beating the Raiders, I guess he immediately got on the phone and like, we'll take Jacoby Myers off your hand for a 4th and a 6. So I think that you still need to get Parker Washington. Wow. And I just want to check this real time for everyone. I just feel like I should do my due diligence like in real time. So Parker Washington had 17 last week. Okay. I know they're playing against that Houston defense. I do understand that part. I don't necessarily believe like just the addition of Jacoby Myers is just going to be like, oh, it's Jacoby Myers now, so like he's now the one. I don't think that's the way that's going to translate. I think that we're still very much looking at Parker Washington maybe being the one just because of having, now almost 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience with Trevor Lawrence. So I think that Parker Washington is probably the guy more so that they go to. Just my theory, just my belief. So I'm still personally buying in on Parker Washington. When I start Aiden or Parsons this week, I am definitely throwing out Aiden Hutchinson every fucking chance I get. So I'm always going to start Aiden Hutchinson. I like that you threw out the IDP question. I love the Jack Metz shout out, and I love the Thornton shout out. The Raiders or I love even fucking Trey Tucker, like a lot of people have been dropping like Trey Tucker's like obviously now going to be Trey Tucker's offense. So we'll see. So like I said, but I'm still in on Parker Washington. Alec Pierce, 26% rostered. Here's the thing with Alec Pierce is that I am wanting Alec Pierce at least as a bench stash, just for the simple fact in case he has those high-end double-digit point weeks this last week against Pitt, 19.5. It seems like Pierce more so shines in kind of tough game situations, quote unquote, or either where the defenses are just very porous. Alec Pierce is always an anomaly because he has a tendency to have these random seasons or these random games throughout a season to where he'll just pop off and then go back off of the radar. I don't know exactly what to make of it, but it's just one of those things where you want a piece of the high-powered offense. So I don't mind. They're playing against Atlanta, and Atlanta's trash. So I think they'll be better for having a little bit of Alec Pierce. Calvin Austin is more so just they kind of just utilize Calvin Austin. Like the way they more so like utilize Calvin Austin is just more so it's like, hey, we'll kind of get the ball to you like when we can. They're targeting him about 6 times on average per game. Nothing necessarily on the high end. It's not necessarily that he's on the field a whole lot. But Calvin also just kind of always finds a way to, make his name known as maybe someone, hey guys, like I'm here, you can maybe pick me up off the waiver wire. Troy Franklin, I just feel like at this point, as we get closer to playoffs, I want to be having him in comparison to maybe some other players that you guys could go out there and add drop. Troy Franklin at this point, he's having enough boom weeks and it's starting to become a consistent enough thing. Between him and Bo Nix, he's wide receiver 27 on the year. If on a low end I'm gonna get 9 points out of him, that's not gonna fucking frustrate me, as much. But if I could get some of those weeks where I'm getting 20, 26 points, because he has these really big fantasy weeks, here and there, week 2, week 7, week 8, he's had these really big fantasy weeks. I'm actually really starting to buy in on Troy Franklin and really starting to begin to believe that Troy Franklin could be a thing for fantasy managers down the stretch and heading into the playoffs. Of course, there's Torrey Horton. I'm not as high on this one as I probably should have been heading into this episode, but that's because they bring in Rashid Shaheed. So how much of Horton do we really get to see now? Especially whenever Cooper Kupp eventually gets placed back into the fold. That's where that's where I worry a little bit. It is a kind of heel hamstring combo for Cooper Kupp. So maybe it does take a couple of weeks. Even maybe he's not exactly back this week for Arizona, but they're definitely going to need a cut for, the Rams. That one's a little bit tougher for Seattle there, but Torrey Horton in deeper formats mainly, but with the acquisition of Shaheed today, Torrey Horton kind of is like fuck. A.D. Mitchell did go to the gulag. A.D. Mitchell is an interesting one because like a lot of people are like, well, do I go and get A.D. Mitchell now? And I still say no just because of the Jets offense. Would rather want Steelers tight ends. I am dead. That actually gets us into the waiver wire tight ends. Juwan Johnson, 33%. He pretty much was saved and remains as a top 12 fantasy tight end because of that lone touchdown. I don't think that we're in a territory yet per se to where we need to be referring to Juwan Johnson as touchdown dependent. The offense has definitely shown that it is a touchdown dependent offense. Tyler Shock did not necessarily do anything to shock the world or make fantasy managers believe in this offense. But the floor, for the most part, is pretty stable with Juwan Johnson. He's tight end 10 on the year. It's solid enough numbers that Juwan Johnson's putting up week in and week out to where definitively could possibly win a couple of people depending on roster construction. Could probably be a fantasy league winner this year. Is probably going to be on some championship winning teams. So Juwan Johnson is actually balling this year. He's having probably one of his better fantasy years of all. So I'm interested to see how this goes. Like I said, he's tight end 10 now. He's never finished above tight end 15. Dude is on a fucking tear right now. Luke Musgrave, you can definitely go out and get Luke Musgrave. If you lost Tucker Kraft, if you're not able to go and grab a Juwan Johnson, or maybe you're afraid of taking a shot on a Colson Loveland, who we're going to talk about next. It is very easy to go and pivot towards Luke Musgrave and just look back at when Luke Musgrave was the tight end one for this offense before Tucker Kraft got inserted, and be able to justify grabbing Luke Musgrave and just kind of being like, you know what, like we're gonna let sleeping dogs lie and just hope that this works. Luke Musgrave is definitely one of those guys that I think that is going to be able to fill his predecessor's shoes. I mean, he technically was the predecessor, and then Tucker Kraft came in and took over. But I think that Luke Musgrave is good enough and honestly familiar enough with the offense, and as fantasy managers, we should be familiar enough with them when he was, dominating, to where I think this could actually be a play for us. I mean, of course, you have to do different things with Musgrave as an offensive coordinator that you're not able to do with Kraft. But I think that the Packers offense is so heavily built around passing to the tight end that Musgrave is going to go out there and still eat and still take up the target market share that Tucker Kraft was demanding. So I actually, especially when they are down, the receivers that they are down, Jordan Love is going to have to go to weapons that he is familiar with. So I actually do love Luke Musgrave low-key off the waiver wire, especially if you're not going to be able to grab a Juwan Johnson. Colson Loveland is interesting. I find myself in this weird enigma of, is Ben Johnson getting the Bears on the right track? Does this now make me want to start buying stock into the Chicago Bears? The answer you can't put up a week like you did, and for me to not want to maybe just see about grabbing you onto my fantasy team. Okay, so that's my whole that's my whole thing there with the Colson Loveland shit. Exactly. Yeah, there was no Luther Burden as well. Um, I don't think that you're going to get that out of Colson Loveland every week. I know that you're not going to get that out of Colson Loveland every week. We haven't been shown what the floor. We haven't been shown if there's a safe floor for Colson Loveland yet. For me, I just don't like going out on these 1 week wonders and then like blowing my waiver priority on that or throwing a lot of fab on that. I'd much rather prefer like a Juwan Johnson or a Luke Musgrave or even, a Dalton Schultz if I can. Um, but I think that that's where I would kind of I would kind of play my play my waiver wire priorities. Um, Colson Loveland, it's nice, it's shiny, it's the new hotness on the block, but I don't want to bank my fantasy season on it. I just really don't. I'd much rather go and get me someone that I'm a little bit more familiar with, and I could probably really probably place the bank on a little bit more safer. Juwan's a safer grab than Loveland. Musgrave's a safer grab than Loveland, and Schultz, in my opinion, are a safer grab than Loveland. You're probably not going to hear very many YouTube channels say that. Everyone's probably like, "Go get Loveland," and you don't have to believe the hype. Like Dalton Schultz is giving you a safer floor than Colson Loveland. I mean, aside from weeks, let's see, San Fran he had 6. I mean, but aside from weeks 1 and 2, I mean, and then week 8 against San Fran, it's been 16, 13, 16, 27, 20. And then he had his bye. I'd rather chance that personally. That is it for the NFL Fantasy Football Waiver Wire Week 10. I do want to react to the NFL trade deadline. I have a few qualms with some of the moves that were made. Okay. More namely, the hype. Here's my thing. The hype around Dallas, saying that they were going to go and they were going to make a splash. That splash wasn't that splash. At first, we were thinking that splash was going to be Logan Wilson, and at first, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like that's what you're trying to convince your fan base is going to be a positive move, in the right direction. You went from the first worst defense, Logan, to the second worst. So though that one I found a little bit interesting. At first I thought that hell that was going to be all, and that was going to be it. Then Dallas went and grabbed Quinn Williams. Okay. They trade Quinn Williams. Let's see here. Let me go back and look at that trade package. Trading a 2026 second round pick and a 2027 first round pick and Mozzie Smith, who was a bust, for Quentin Williams. Let me also couple the Jets thing with the fact that they also got rid of first and seconds, and the Colts got rid of first and seconds and A.D. Mitchell to acquire Sauce Gardner. Yes, defense has been an issue. Yes, you have a defensive-minded head coach. You now have to replace those defensive cornerstones. You still have no fucking offense. It's obvious getting this many early picks that the decision is going to be quarterback, but you also have a defensive-minded coach that you're going to also have to balance that out with defensive pedigree as well. The Jets historically are not known for hitting on these draft prospects. If I'm the Jets, I am trying to flip these picks, knowing my track record in the draft, and I am trying to get solidified, bona fide talent. Exactly. Neither Williams nor Sauce were old. Those are pieces that you need to be building around. Those are pieces you don't necessarily give up. I understand getting the first, and don't get me wrong, that is the value of those guys. But at the same time, I'm like, for a corner, I don't give a damn if it is Sauce. For a corner, I understand, yes, Dallas needing a D tackle and needing to make a splash. You needed more than Quinn Williams, and Logan Wilson means shit. Indy got better. Indy is clearly sending a signal to the league. We want to go and we want to win right now. I'm not faulting Indy for doing what they did, because Indy is like, fuck these draft picks. Let's go. Let's win now. We're in the drive. You have to win now. You have to win now. So I don't mind, and I don't fault any team, offering up their draft picks. I'm just saying, in today's market, that is unheard of and it is unseen for that many picks for just the short time frame of the next 2 years to be being given up for both the Sauce and the Quentin Williams trade. But I also understand the mindset of, we are also giving these picks to the Jets. So it's not like, but if you're the Jets, the smart thing to do is don't hold all these picks. You need to get veteran presence. You need to get veteran presence that can actually make a difference. You need to get leadership. Stop just trying to chase talent. Stop just trying to chase big names. Stop just trying to, same thing from free agency and the draft. Go and get leaders. Go and get people that can actually impact the organization from the inside and inspire and create change. To Johnson's question, do I believe that Quentin Williams is going to help get Dallas on track? No. That is one piece. That is a piece. The secondary is still ass. The secondary is still ass. So like, it's an upgrade. It's an upgrade from Mozzie. It's an upgrade from Mozzie Smith. So I mean, there's that. Quinn Williams is a good run defender. Don't ask about pass. Exactly. Like that's like off the fucking table. Rebuilding, but those players aren't even. Like we said, like it's just. I do like that the Chargers got Trevor Penning from the Saints. They needed to, kind of get a warm body in there after losing Joe Alt. So I do like that. I feel like that was a good move. Other than that, I mean, and then I really love the Rashid Shaheed to Seattle move. Seattle deciding we're doing some damage right now. Seattle and Indiana, I feel like their mindsets were very much identical heading in today. It was we're a piece away. Let's go out there and add that extra piece. You know, I think Seattle, even after beating Washington, was like, Torrey Horton's great. You know, we need we need that extra blow. I think that they probably even said that even before they needing a little extra. You needing someone to be able to kind of help get JSN, maybe even open even more. So I like that Seattle went out to go and get a speedster like Shaheed. It's going to get JSN open even more. It's going to open up the top of the defense and take the top off the defense even more. Now you can even compliment him out there, and give the veteran, the crafty veteran, Cooper Kupp, a lot of a couple plays off and even be able to deploy him with fresh legs. So those are all things that I do highly like, and I do think that are important with the trade deadline. I do think that some teams um, made some made some great decisions, uh, and yeah, like it's gonna be it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be dope to kind of get into the second half of this season, and see where things go. Oh, and I think it's hilarious that Jalen Ramsey's gonna be moving to safety. It's like I thought that you were already gonna supposed to be doing that. Like, yeah, Seattle gets a big time deep threat. Um, Seattle gets a big time deep threat. Really quick, I do want to kind of throw this out there. With Brees Hall not getting traded, that's not to say that they still do not trade him at the end of the year. Just they're obviously not going to in season trade him, right? That's not to say, especially after his tweet today, that they don't move on from him. Garrett Wilson's obviously going to be locked in. Brees Hall, either one of two things are going to happen. Either Brees demands a trade at the end of the year, or they throw money at Brees to keep him silent, happy, and to continue to take losses. That's where Brees Hall's career is at that point. At this point. And just kind of want to throw out there, I kind of mentioned it earlier. Trey Tucker's probably going to be the one for the Raiders now, with Thornton and Beck kind of being 2A, 2B. I could picture Tyler Lockett being the 3. It's going to be interesting to see how that situation works itself out. If you don't have to get pieces off that offense, don't. If you can stay clear, it's okay. No one's gonna. I don't think that anyone's gonna fault you with the way that Gino has that offense clicking right now. Other than that, things NFL fans should accept after week 9, and then I'll get us out of here. The Seattle Seahawks and the Indianapolis Colts, after the NFL trade deadline, are absolutely serious. But these trades could come back in, not necessarily for Seattle, but for Indy. Should they not go all the way this year, this trade could come back and haunt them and bite them in the ass. Especially if they already had a defense. Washington season is Joe over. Okay. Sam Darnold needs to be placed into MVP conversations after week 9. And Pats, Colts, Broncos. It's like it's 2014. And that's all I have for all things. Oh, no, that's all I have for all things that NFL fans need to accept right now after week 9. So yeah, that's all I have for right now off the top of my head. Yeah, other than that, Arizona's better off with Jacoby instead of Kyler. Kyler is not going to be the quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals next year. He will be the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Watch. Other than that, it's been a nice night. It's been a dope night. Taco, I hope that you get well. I hope that you rest well. This has been Waiver Wire and Trade Deadline edition for the Goal Line Goons. I'm going to head out. So that way people that want to rewatch this are able to go back and rewatch this. So cheers to me. Cheers to you. All the rum boys and girls, what it do. Dilly dilly. Arrrr. Happy Tuesday, y'all.
Preaching on the, yeah.